Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhavacacharya Sota Sata Sri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhavacacharya Sota Sata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premistika Host Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mayapur Dham Ki. Dwarka Dham Ki. Yamunamai Gangamai Ki. Samaveda Bhaktavrinda Ki. All glories assembled devotees. All glories assembled devotees. All glories assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 24, Text 48. Yat Seva Yagnir Eva Rudra Rodhanam Puman Vijayan Malam Atmanapanas Tamaha Prajita Sarnam Nijam Esa So Vyayo Puyat Sa Esaha Paramo Guru Yat Sevanagniridam Rudra Yanam Pumam Vijayan Malam Atmanastamaha Pujita Sarnam E Nejam Esasolyuyat Puyatsa Esha Paramo Guru Yat Seva Yaginir Esa Rudra Radhanamam Puman Vijayan Malam Atmanastamaha Pajita Sarnam Nijam Esasa Yuya Bhuyat Sar Esaha Paramamo Guru Guru Ho. Ladies, Yet Sevaya, Supreme Personality of Godhead, by serving whom? Agniha, in touch with fire. Eva, as it is. Ruda, Rodanam, a block of gold, becomes purified. Pumam, a person. Vijayat, one give up. Malam, all the dirty things of material existence. Atmanaha, of oneself. Impious activities. Bhajita, may revive. Varnam, his original identity. Nijam, one's own. Esaha, such. Sha, he. Asvayaha, inexhaustible. Bhuyat, let him become. Sa, he. Esha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Paranam, the Supreme. Guru Guru, the spiritual master of all other spiritual masters. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who wants to be free of material entanglement should take to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and give up this contamination of ignorance involving pious and impious activities. Thus one regains his original identity, just as a block of gold or silver sheds all dirt and becomes purified when treated with fire. May that inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead become our spiritual master, for he is the original spiritual master of all other spiritual masters. Please repeat. One who wants to be free of material entanglement should take to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and give up the contamination of ignorance involving pious and impious activities. That's important, pious and impious. Thus one regains his original identity, just as a block of gold or silver sheds all dirt and becomes purified when treated with fire. May that inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead become our spiritual master, for he is the original spiritual master of all other spiritual masters. Purport. In human life, one is meant to undergo austerities to purify one's existence. Tapadevyam putrala sena satyam sudhyate. Because of contamination by the modes of material nature, one continues in a cycle of birth and death. Karanam guna sangha swa suasad yoni agnas janmasyu. Therefore, the purpose of human life is to purify oneself of the contamination so that one can regain a spiritual form and not undergo this cycle of birth and death. The recommended process of decontamination is devotional service to the Lord. There are various processes for self-realization, such as karma, jnana, and yoga, but none of them is equal to the process of devotional service. As gold and silver can be freed from all dirty contamination by being put into a fire, but not merely by being washed, the living entity can be awakened to his own identity by performing devotional service, yat sevaya, but not by karma, jnana, or yoga. Contamination of speculative knowledge or practice of yoga, gymnastics will not be helpful. The word varna refers to the luster of one's original identity. The original luster of gold or silver is brilliant. Similarly, the original luster of the living being, who is part of the Satchidananda Vigraha, is the luster of ananda, or pleasure. Anandamayo bhusayat. Every living entity has the right to become anandamaya, joyful, because he is part of the Satchidananda Vigraha, Krishna. Why should a living entity be put into tribulation because of dirty contamination by the material modes of nature? The living entity should become purified, regain his sarup, his original identity. This he can do only by devotional service. Therefore, one should adopt the instructions of the spiritual master of God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described here as Guna Guru, the spiritual master of all other spiritual masters. Even though we may not have the fortune to contact the Supreme Lord personally, the Lord's representative is as good as the Lord himself, because such a representative does not say anything unless it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore, gives a definition of Guru. Yadidaka Sadloka Krishna Upadesha. The bona fide guru is he who advises his disciples exactly in accordance with the principles spoken by Krishna. The bona fide guru is he who has accepted Krishna as guru. This is Guru Parampara system. The original guru is Vasudeva because he is a speaker of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein everything spoken relates to Krishna. Therefore, Guru Puja is known as Vyas Puja. In the final analysis, the original guru is Krishna, the disciple is Narada, whose disciple is Vyas. And this way we gradually come in touch with the Guru Parampara. One cannot become a guru if he does not know what the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, or his incarnation wants. The mission of the guru is the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishnastai Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Yatadama Te Sadvat Dev Gauravan Bachaya Nirasi Shasunyavad Paskasha. First order of business is to glorify a departed soul, Gunagrahi Maharaj. I'd like to speak a little bit about him, what I know. He joined in Buffalo, and he was part of the big entourage of disciples of Srila Prabhupada that came out of that university. He traveled quite a bit. He had a van. He traveled with associates, and he preached primarily in San Diego. And there he did a lot to help establish that temple. He was a sannyas for many years, and he recently just passed away yesterday. In a roaring kirtan. It was on Facebook apparently. And there was all these senior disciples, sannyasis, gathering around with a rip-roaring kirtan. And the last thing he did, he smiled just before he left his body. And there are many devotees who believe in that. This is the graduation process. That ultimately, that's the moment we're all waiting for, when we can actually discard this material body and go back home, back to Godhead. And so his departure is exemplary because he spent his whole life, most of it, in Krishna consciousness, and departed in the association of kirtan and disciples surrounded by him as God brothers. And so, Gunagrahi Maharaj Ki Jai. Is there anybody here that knew him and want to say a few words? Yeah. Pass the mic. Is there a mic?
Hare Krishna. Gunagrahi Maharaj came and visited in Dallas in I guess 1995, 96. He had a big bus because he used to travel all over the nation. And he stayed there in Dallas for quite some time, and the devotees really loved him. He was expert in kirtan, Harinam. He could play the tablas, and so he was always very enthusiastic in Harinam.
He played a big Congo drum in the end.
Yeah.
What was the other instrument he played? Something kept ringing.
Yeah, he was expert in all kind of musical instruments. He made it into an art, and he would teach the others how to do it right also. Anyhow, so I saw him when he first came to Vrindavan 2 years ago for Kartik. He was actually dying of cancer. And he had been preaching in South America for many years, so he had lost contact with the devotees in America. And the people that were taking care of him, they must have been from South America. They were desperate for funds to help him because it was very expensive, the medicine he had to take. So I told him, well, and he didn't want to advertise it or ask for help, So I told him that's silly because all they have to do is contact the devotees in Dallas and they will make a fundraiser and take care of him. So that's what she did, and he was taken care of. He was taking a special medicine that was actually very good in slowing down the progress. So he was able to last for 2 years there in Vrindavan. And every night he would do kirtans, in his house, where he lived. And many devotees would come, and he would make a special arrangement for everyone to get to lead, and to lead the kirtan, and you helped them how to do it nicely.
I was there for one of the nights.
Oh yeah?
And it was explosive. There were three people, four were dancing so vigorously, it knocked everybody out.
Okay.
They're circling and running and dancing.
Yeah, so you had named that house Srivas Anga?
That house was shaking.
Yeah. Okay. Haribol.
Anybody else? Yeah, best. I know this, and I'm trying to rectify the situation, so forgive me. But I'll... If I speak closer to the mic, is that better? Okay. In accordance with this purport, I was the last 2 months in America with my family, sisters, and relatives. And it's imperative that we do preach. And the mandate the Prabhupada gave us is to preach vigorously, no matter where we are. And so I tried that. But when you're talking to people with deaf ears or pretending to be asleep, there's no hope. So Prabhupada did encourage us to at least try, but we have to go on and find receptive audience. And Prabhupada wanted us to give more than flowers and sweet words, but do something. So activities like write books or distribute books, activities. So we do something. Engaging in writing books, that was a mandate Prabhupada gave all of us to do that. And so that's my main objective right now. But I saw in America there's a lot of bogus gurus, and there's the TV gurus. There's 3 or 4, I don't know how many. There's so many people who are pretending to be erudite scholarship and giving the message of God. First off, they don't know who is God. And they don't know. Who is God? They have no idea he's even a person. And so, is that clear? I mean, you can understand so far? I can't turn this mic a little. It's frozen. I can't change it. I want to turn it a little bit. Well, no, not high. Just, okay, that's good. All right, that's fine. So in other words, that's better. These people who are looking for answers to questions they can't find, like who are we, why are we here, what's our purpose in life? Most important question is there sex after death? And Prabhupada gave a big joke about that. Of course there's sex after death. There's so much, because you take on so many different bodies, and there's, as we know, 8,400,000 varieties that we can, if we had a choice, we can choose any one we want, but there's no choice. So, in accordance with the preaching ability to turn ourselves from mundane material energy into gold and silver, this process Prabhupada speaks so much about all the time, from the very beginning to his last words, was to preach. And to become self-realized means understanding who God is. And I've been doing a lot of writing since I was in America, because I was with people who have no knowledge, even basic principles of devotional service. They have no idea God is a person, first off. So if you can't see God as a person, if you ask him, like even Prabhupada asked different Indians that came to him in Vrindavan, who is God? Oh, he's omniscient, he's omnipotent, he's very big, he's great. Who is God? I said, that's not God, that's only part of it. God is a person. And so if you understand the personality of Godhead, it's easier to worship him and understand all his facilities and all his attributes. So in accordance with the understanding of who God is, it takes the guru. And Srila Prabhupada, we are so blessed because all of us are in a prison house. We're on good behavior. Because here in Mayapur, it's a spiritual dham, and ultimately we're being blessed by the association of all of our God brothers and sisters and all the devotees, and by the presence of the Supreme Lord in all these different forms here in Mayapur. But this is, unfortunately, most of the world has no access. And I just saw it over and over again. People who I trust and I grew up with, friends and relatives, closed-minded. It's just nothing. They don't want to hear about it. Especially the older they get. There are few people ask questions. But then when you start giving the answers, and I wrote up a whole new story about these big questions that people are asking, at least unconsciously maybe. But who are we? Why are we here? What's this world all about? What's our purpose? Why do we put through so much misery? Why do bad things happen to good people? All of these questions are answerable because Srila Prabhupada shed the light on every aspect of material life and spiritual life. So, in accordance with the instruction that Prabhupada gave us to look deeper into the realm of spiritual life, and the reason to go deeper is that's the way to explore the Supreme Lord, by going inside ourselves. There are a couple of analogies about this. There were scientists in Europe a century ago, when microscopes were first coming into existence. They were trying to find the inside road to inside infinity. Outside you had telescopes and you can explore the universe. All these instruments were in the initial stages. Okay, so there are 3 or 4 different scientists who said we can find the intricacies of infinity by going deeper into the material energy. So the deeper they went, the more confused they got. Because now even with the modern telescopes, they can go halfway to where the spirit soul is located. About half, from what I heard. And so still it gets more complicated. There are little instruments within our atom system that spins around and stops on an abrupt stops and just turns around and goes the opposite direction. Now that's a little instrument that's in the atom. And so we know Krishna's there also. So there's no place he's not. That Supreme Lord is inexhaustible in terms of his infinity, inside and outside. There's no way we can measure the Lord's energy because he himself can't cope with it because he changes all the time. And not the Sesha, the same thing, all the time speaking about the glories of the Supreme Lord. But unfortunately, there's no end. Fortunately, there's no end. A little bit about King Satyavrata, that he had 1 week to load that boat that he had. Obvious parallel, the Bible must have gotten a story from here about Noah's Ark. And I guess there's so many movies about that, about the glories of Noah and his fabulous ark. But here, King Satyavrata had a week to bring in the herbs and the animals, and the great sages were there. So he spoke, Matsya spoke to him through the heart. And through the heart he was given all the instruction that he needed to carry on. And as there were 2 fish incarnations, which I didn't know. The first one was the one that killed Hiranyagarbha. Wasn't it Hiranyagarbha? Hayagriva. So he was the first incarnation of Matsya. And the second one is the one who showed the boat the way through the storm and the devastation. Second one. So I got a few things. A little bit more involved in the idea of this understanding about the experiences we're having of being led into different tight situations and why we suffer even as devotees. It's because tapa. If Lord Brahma had a problem with it, so what about us? We're in a little bit of minuscule situation. But if we embrace, and I told this to some of my nieces and relatives, they ask, why are we suffering so much? And I said, well, it's a very simple thing. It's called karma. And if you understand about karma, and I explained a little bit, that we're from birth, we have all these things preordained. I even spoke to Kiwanis and Rotary Club members, and they're old people, retired. I says, well, you know, you didn't have to work so hard in your whole life, because at the time of your birth, everything is given. All your money is going to come to up to a certain level. Your pious activities will be there, and your tapasya, your different ways that you're going to suffer, will be included at the time of birth. All that's going to happen whether you like it or not. And so it means you don't. I wish my father was around to hear this, because he worked too hard. That working hard is important for rendering devotional service. But for those who are just working so hard and mundane to gratify their senses and to extend their family situation, it's a loss. And so, unfortunately, most of the world is just employing their talents and energies to glorify their senses. So, and I told them, you know, if whatever you think about at the moment of death, that last moment of what you're thinking is going to be your next birth. And what we have today in our present body is what we had desired from a previous life. So ultimately, it's very important what you think about and practice in your glorification of the Lord. So I explained about the chanting process and what it means to chant the holy name, as like a runner will practice and run trial speeds with weights on his legs, just to get speed up and just to go faster and to be good at what he does. The same thing, the chanting process is meant for that same purpose, to get us running towards the Lord in a way that nothing can stop us. And so it's all inclusive in how we chant and how we go about our daily life in devotional service. But remembering the process, and I told him, we're in a prison house. And there's a great analogy Socrates gave about the cave. You may have heard this probably, but anyway, it's worth repeating. There is one individual tied down in a cave, tied down with his own desires, and the desire of sex life is the biggest bondage, because it's something nobody wants to give up. So there's no greater tying principle than sex life. And so this one person managed to free himself through austerities and stop the whole entanglement of material energy. He climbed out of the cave and realized that there's something beyond the realm of material existence. He saw there was some light above. And so when he entered into the light, he could see that there was another world waiting beyond anything material, spiritual world. But he wasn't seeing that. He was just seeing the light of day for the first time, because born in a cave of ignorance, one does not see reality. In fact, we're all born in that ignorance. From the time we take birth to the time we leave the planet, ultimately leaving the body is all done in ignorance for most people. And I was born, I told this to my relatives, because they're all meat eaters. Up until I was 32, I never had a taste for vegetarian food. I never thought you could live without it, without meat. And so I explained that if I can do it, if I can get out of this shackle of meat eating, ultimately anybody can. And so I did that. From back when I was 32, I became a vegetarian when I met my wife. And so together we forged a pathway to find spiritual life and to find a guru. And so it's a long story. But ultimately, she dragged me into spiritual life. I was very happy being in ignorance, just painting and teaching at the college, art. So in any case, back to the cave. So he gets up, sees the light, understands it's a higher reality. And he wants to, of course you understand when you got something like Prabhupada's gold and silver, very valuable elements. So when you find spiritual life, I understand there's something more beyond the intricacies of being tied down with sex life in a cave of ignorance. You want to share that. You want to try to tell somebody and help people extract themselves from this incarceration. And so he did that. Of course, the first thing they did, the first person he talked to turned around and killed him. So you got to be very careful if you go back home, back to your hometown, what you say and who you say it to, because I experienced it. There's definite reaction. People will not listen until they get the experience directly through hard knocks. So tapasya is the reason for our existence. We have to serve, do the austerities, and that's one of my nieces asks all the time, how do I get out of this entanglement? I said, just follow the principles, offer your food, and I gave the principles how to do it. Chant the holy name, and ultimately you'll get relief, because the suffering is prescribed, as I told her, from your birth. And so the people in that assembly of Kiwanis, and they just right over their heads, because they worked so hard their whole life. Now it's time to die, and ultimately you die with ignorance, and you just take another body out of the 8,400,000 varieties. Now back to the story. Lord Brahma received the Vedas after Hayagriva was killed by the Supreme Lord. The first thing he did was Lord Brahma is coming out of slumber, and so he gets the Vedas instructed through the heart. So it brings up another principle, that if we listen to our conscience, listen to our heart, super soul's about that big in the heart. And so if we listen to super soul, it's like God as our co-pilot. It came out of the Second World War. People were flying missions that were dangerous. They understood that the reason they weren't killed is because the Lord is their co-pilot. So the same thing for us. We have God as a co-pilot. He is guiding us through every little nuance of life. Move this way, move that way. If you listen carefully, and I mentioned this before, that if you listen carefully to that small little voice inside our heart, that's the self-realization principle that the yogis go after. They want that. They want self-realization. But it comes from another direction, faster, by devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada, from the very beginning, stressed this whole point, that if you dig deeper into the heart, ultimately spiritual life opens up. Now there's a big thing in America, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but called Powerball. Anybody heard of this? Powerball. It just happened recently. USA is Unitedly Sense Gratifiers of America. So the USA. And they have lots of giveaway programs. Television is full of all these big programs, winning money, making it fast, and keeping it. And so there's one thing called Powerball. If you get 5 or 6 numbers correct, you'll win $1 billion. $1 billion is available. Of course, the government's behind the whole deal. They take half of the money. So if you win $1 billion, half it goes to the government. But there are people, my cousin won a couple $1,000, no, $200,000. And then that's the tie point. As soon as you win big, you're finished, because then you can't stop playing the game. So she does that regularly. She goes to a parlor where they put their numbers in and plays the game. And it's addictive. People, Las Vegas, of course, is the home for addicted gamblers. So Prabhupada says, stop pious and impious activities. So pious means other religions and other ideas about what religion's all about, who God is. If God's just a person floating on a cloud playing a harp, there's no access. So we have everything, including his phone number. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And even a child can call it up. Anybody can dial a number. It's just so free. But Prabhupada talking about meat eaters, and in the jungle it's okay because you're savages and you eat meat to survive. Savages like Borneo and places in the Australia, the Aborigines, they don't know cultivation, so they kill and eat. But human beings in the civilized countries, so-called civilized, don't have any call for that. But when you watch this, and I saw it so many times, they invited me to eat with them in restaurants and different places. I had to go. And so they scuffle up all their different meat, chicken, beef, and don't have any idea of where that's coming from. They have pictures of fancy, happy cows outside these meat places, and it's very sad. But one of the things that did happen in Prabhupada's preaching, of course many things happened, but one of the key factors of his preaching against cow killing, it happened to be effective, so that a lot of people around the world have become vegetarian on the basis of what Prabhupada said. And so, because we see it from a different light, we don't know the habits of people who are unlike devotees, but people who are born and raised in meat-eating communities. My mother force-fed me with, I remember 3 years old, sitting in a high chair with one of these shelves. And there's a thing called in little jars called Gerber's baby food. And that Gerber's baby food is canned processed meat. And so I wouldn't take it. I refused it. I remember I was 3 years old. I still remember that. And my sisters also, they didn't want it. I think because we're born in a situation we can't have any control over, we get accustomed to it, and then you start eating the meat. And my father raised rabbits. And I said, "Why are you killing my sweet little Snow White?" Someday you'll learn. So in any case, we're born and raised in trialing situations, and we have to extract ourselves. The same thing, even today as devotees, we have to go on with it. And going on with devotion life means being very careful. If you have a tendency to go back to your hometown and retrace your beginning, be very careful, because it's very entangling. And all your friends and relatives want to do is to suck you back into their Maya. And so ultimately Maya is very strong, and that's exactly what happens. Association of friends and families is something like swimming in an ocean of tar. It's hard to get out of it. But in the time I spent in America, 2 months was very instructive, because I saw how people were living in a situation that I didn't really understand when I was in that situation. Because ultimately, when you're involved in up to your neck in Maya, you're very happy, because everything comes automatically. The food you get, the process. America is a very wealthy country, and even the poorest of poor is way above India's standard. So Prabhupada begins and ends just about everything about this whole idea about preaching and trying to get people out of Maya. And so the exit out of Maya is to go deeper into spiritual life. And how to do that? How to go deep into your spiritual life. And that's becoming very serious and very determined about your chanting, more chanting, bigger numbers of chanting. And if you try for 64 rounds, it's not so hard, because you can do it if you clear your mind and take no food and just chant the holy name. And ultimately, another very important aspect is our association with each other. How we relate to one another is very important. That's better. I'm sorry it took so long to get this, but anyway, here we are. So our association with one another is a very important factor in our process in devotional life. If you have any enemies in spiritual life, you're not in spiritual life. Because ultimately, a devotee has no enemies. He's a well-wisher for everything that exists. And Srila Prabhupada is more pleased by somebody who is doing something than somebody who's just talking. So if we engage ourselves cent for cent in devotional life, be it distributing books mainly is the key factor. Distributing books is the closest thing to Prabhupada's heart. So if we can't do that, Prabhupada wanted books to be written by devotees. So do that, write books. And if you can't do that, chant the holy name. If you can't do that with any sincerity, smile a lot, and go to the temple and be happy and friendly with your devotees, your friends who are more serious. But follow the example of devotees who have left their bodies already, like Gunagrahi. He left with a smile on his face. And I've seen it so many times in Vrindavan and there was one famous particular incident with Gauri. I may have told the story before, but very important. Here's a devotee who was a big book distributor in Los Angeles. And she came to Vrindavan to leave her body. First time she got healed and went back and distributed more books. And she got a recurrence in cancer, whatever she had, leukemia, and back again to Vrindavan. Now when she was about to leave her body, she wanted to be put on the floor, out of the bed, put on the floor like a sage. And so we did that. We put her on the floor. And so I was holding her deities and my wife was holding pictures of Prabhupada. And so if you're in a situation, that's the key. Prabhupada, deities, and the holy name chanting. And like a Gunagrahi, the kirtan was uproarious. It was all the big sannyasis were there chanting. And so that chanting process will take us back home, back to Godhead. And so obviously she left a big smile on her face. And taking her body to the Jamuna was exciting. Her body was bouncing up and down on a pelican. And we got to Jamuna, bathed her body, and put her on the fire. And pretty soon the fire was going on, and we decided to go back to the temple. It was over. But on the way, it started wind blowing like furiously, a hurricane. It kept blowing, all the sand was being blown off the shore of the Jamuna. It was being sandblasted. You couldn't see more than a foot in front of you. And so I take it as that she was a great sage and different kind of a unusual sadhu. And so in any case, their exemplary departure was something to be amazed to witness. But each departure of a great soul. One time I brought in, one Russian lady was to leave her body. So I brought in a big standing figure of Prabhupada. I was making Prabhupada standing, sitting, walking, chanting. And so we brought in a full-size figure of Prabhupada, standing, put it in the room with her. And so she got shocked when she saw Prabhupada. It was like looking at her from a standing figure. Then she left her body. So in any case, it's a race that we're all in about going back home, back to Godhead. And along the way, if we can do some good, it's nice. And if we can shower some mercy, help devotees, that's another part of the story. If we can help one another advance in Krishna consciousness, ultimately, that's our ticket for going back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Brahmanandi. Anybody have anything to say? Any questions? They're unanswered.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
I just wanted to ask a question. We know that Bhakti Yoga is the top, but often when preaching in Indian crowds, they say karma yoga, karma yoga. But bhakti yoga is performing action for the service of the Lord. So how would you explain to such a person that's just always stressing karma yoga, karma yoga?
Well, Prabhupada talked so much about it, karma yoga, jnana yoga, all the different yoga systems. My understanding was in the beginning, before devotee life, before I was devotee, that yoga was a exercise, using bodily exorcism. But Prabhupada turned the whole thing around. It's bhakti yoga, none of that. It would help a lot to keep your weight down and keep your health and be, using different yoga systems. But bhakti yoga is a whole brand new thing. And so ultimately serving devotees and serving the Supreme Lord as devotional service is a whole other kind of yoga. And the yoga systems that are beneficial, not the body, but the spirit and a super soul within the body is pleased by bhakti yoga. So Prabhupada gave us a whole new definition about yoga. And when people are distributing books, they show the book, and here's a book on yoga. It's bhakti yoga. They don't even understand what the bhakti yoga idea means. But that's our process to show what bhakti yoga is and how it's way above every other kind of yoga system. There's so many yoga teachers and people who expound on the exercise yoga for the body. It's okay. I mean, Prabhupada said don't waste your time. Because once you're in a prison house, all you want to do is get out of it. So we are in a prison house, and that is something that we have to remember. And we're on good behavior, so we got, like in the apartments, in the prison houses in America, one of my friends was in jail with Jimmy Hoffa, one of the very famous big criminals. And so they get a first-class treatment. So devotees in the material world are given first-class treatments. We're in the material world as long as we're in this body. So the body we all have is an example of the fact that we're here because of an offense we had, trying to lord it over and be, trying to enjoy separate the Lord. So bhakti yoga is that. That's the means by which we can extract ourselves from the whole karmic principle of which we're tied down with. All right. That answer that? In any case, I can't explain anymore because it's unlimited. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, go Premanandi, Hadi Hadi Bo. Was that clear? I mean, I wonder if I got clear better with the speaking. Can you understand everything? Better, anyway. Next time I'll try better if there's another time. If I speak into this deeper, but I come from a lifelong inability to speak properly, so it's my fault. Okay, better anyway.